2026 is a year that I hope is awesome for everyone. 2025 was a phenomenal year for me, and as it was for a lot of people. So, 2026 is the new year of assignments. It is the year where you should be flourishing in your purpose, you should be walking in blessing, and you should be making a lot of changes. This is a relationship podcast, and tonight is an introduction to relationship conversations, which is a podcast that I created, produced, and hosted in year of 2022 with my ex. We were engaged at the time, and we had a very good rapport, very good friendship, and I like to say that relationship ran its course, which is nothing wrong with that. We spent many years together, many years off and on, but we had a good understanding, a great understanding. We were great friends. We had a great friendship. But as far as our relationship as a couple, it ran its course. So we did create this podcast together, which I am rebranding and reinventing. This podcast will be available on Vision Network. That is my upcoming TV network app that will be surfacing in spring of 2026 based in Atlanta, Georgia. So 2026 spring launch will be between April and May. So May we will be fully launched. We are holding or hosting rather reality shows, documentaries, and live podcasts. I'm so excited. This is like my major goal for 2026. And this is a project that I wanted to do so long ago. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had the idea to create the network. And I was a bit intimidated in the beginning. Not that I could not do it because I'm an artist and a creator. And as an artist, you create, that's what you do. You create visions and art, and then you lay it all out. So that's what you do as a creator, as an artist, as a producer. But the major problem was I didn't know how I would get the budget. I did not understand um, the budget part of it. And that's a bit intimidating for anyone when you're creating something and you don't know exactly where you're going to get the money from. You don't know exactly where the funding is going to come from. And that's wholeheartedly where your faith comes in at. um, Anything that you've prayed on and that you've asked God to be a part of, you have to believe and you have to understand that He will show you the how to. And so, something that I've learned over the years as an entrepreneur, as an artist, is the how to is none of your business. When it is a part of your purpose, you have to just do the work and just allow God to do the rest. So, faith without works is dead, but you have to put in the work, but you have to understand that along the way, you will be able to figure things out, financially. So, you should never stop something or, stop a project or something that you're creating or any goal that has something to do with your purpose. You should never just stop it because you don't know how this is going to be possible financially, because God is definitely going to work that out for you. So, as you see, this podcast is called Relationship Conversations. It will be a live podcast featured on the Vision Network TV app. The full launch, once again, will be spring 2026. Two of the major projects are reality shows, and then we do have a documentary series, which is going to be very interesting, allowing people to tell their story of something fatal that they've been through, and now they have overcome it. And I also have a documentary as well that's going to be featured on there. Years ago, I lost the father of my three children, and we were very close. We were best friends. He was murdered, and it was a very heavy thing in my life. It was the most traumatic thing that I've ever experienced in my life, was losing him and also witnessing his murder, because he was his unaliving, shall I say. I know there's certain things that you can't say on YouTube, but he was unalived in front of me, and it changed my entire life. It changed my entire life, and it was something that I went through, and because of that life changing event, there were just a lot of things that changed in my life, and a lot of things that changed me, some things for the better and some things not for the good. It was quite an experience that I went through, and I still face elements due to that, because he is greatly missed. He was a large part of my life. We were engaged, and as I said, we had three children, and so he's missed his children's life, and he's gone too soon, you know. But anyway, if you want to know more about that documentary, then you will definitely tune in to Vision Network, and that's what this YouTube channel is all about. Not just my music and not just my content, but we will feature clips of every show that is featured on the TV app, and then everyone will be able to go over to the app, initially go over to Patreon and be able to watch the content, but eventually we will have the app. So I'm just like very excited. But relationship conversations is one of my babies um, as well as the Diamond Perri Show podcast. I created that show in 2011, so that is the eldest podcast that I have. But I originally was an advocate for domestic victims, DV victims, and that is how I prompted to create the Diamond Perri Show. And I did radio for a while with the show at two different radio stations in Atlanta, Georgia. And then I went to travel with it. Um, I did interventions with families, as well as I had my own studio where we filmed. So I did a lot of positive things with the that as well. And the podcast itself, of course, is on iHeartRadio and any digital platform. So I'm everywhere, guys. I'm all over the place. Like, I have so much work out there. So put my name in Google and everything comes up. I'm on a lot of different platforms, not just that, my music as well. And I'm a composer, so um, I love to share myself, and what God has placed in my life. And I just want you guys to follow me and be a part of this journey as I grow and as I go where God is taking me to. I wanted to do this live earlier today, but I had a lot going on. So I needed to do this in order to introduce this podcast. Now, once we go live with it, there will be guests on the podcast, And I didn't want this to just be a thing for couples, marriages. I wanted it to be a project that is for relationships. And that means relationships with um, family members, your significant others, if you're single, if you're married, so that we can have a diversity when it comes to our guests and our speakers on the podcast. Okay. And most of the things I speak on, either I've experienced them or I've watched other people experience, or things that I have seen over the years. I never speak on anything that I don't know anything about. I won't do that. If I'm going to be informative and I'm going to speak, then I'm going to share with the world of something that I've experienced myself, or something that I have gone through, or I know that someone else has experienced. Something that I am familiar with, or that I've gained wisdom upon, my years of living. So I love to share. I'm a creative person, and I'm going to speak the truth, or I'm going to speak my opinion to the best of my ability. Okay, so knowing your worth is really the topic for this evening. And I think that knowing your worth in any relationship is so pertinent. It's so important, because when we don't know our worth, when we get lost in timing and in transition of life, we can forget about us, and forget about our worth. Sometimes you can be in a relationship and so into that person, or into your relationship, or into pleasing your significant other, or whoever it might be, that sometimes you lose yourself, and you're not you may not be appreciated. You may be giving more than what you're receiving. Now, everything is not going to end up 50-50 in any relationship, but there is a such thing of giving too much and emptying your cup, or not being poured back into. And so that's when you're not knowing and you're not understanding your worth. Um, Maybe you're not being appreciated. Maybe you're accepting lazy communication. Lazy communication is a big one with me. I can't stand that. I can't stand the lazy texting. Now, someone other than my significant other, I don't mind texting, because I stay very busy. But to just not call, or to just text all day, we have to be careful of that, because if your significant other doesn't care to hear your voice, I don't care how busy you are, it takes a couple of seconds to call and say, hey, how are you? I just wanted to check on you. I just wanted to hear your voice. If he or she is not interested in taking a few minutes out of their day and seeing how your morning went, seeing how your day is going, just hearing your voice, because when we're texting all day, anything can be going on in your life. Anything can be going on in your world or in your day. You may not even have time to text your significant other, back, or maybe it's too much for you to text at the time. I think that's what I kind of meant by that. So that's just lazy communication. Um, and once again, you need to know your worth. Like, you deserve a phone call. Like, how much do I really mean to you that you can't take time to call me throughout the day and talk to me and see how did my day go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's lazy conversation. You don't care. So sometimes, you know, people will string you along, and it could be someone that you've been with for years that you have really spent a greater part of your life with. Or maybe it's somebody that you've been dating or you've been knowing for a long time, but that's not okay. That's It's unacceptable. Good morning, good evening, good night, I love you. Okay. Where's the phone call at? Where is the communication? You're not that busy. No one is that busy because guess what? The same amount of time that it took for them to send that text, it that's the same amount of time they could have used to call you. We have to know when it's time to go. Like, we have to know when it's time to leave a relationship. That is a major problem. We stay with the wrong people, or we stay in a relationship that has been over 4 or 5 years ago, way too long. Like, have you ever been in a relationship that you know that you should have left? And then once that relationship is over and you look back and you reflect, you realize, you should have been gone like 2 and 3 years ago. And guess what? Time is more valuable than money. You can't get any of that time back. You cannot get those years back. Like, they're gone. So when you know that you're not being appreciated, it might seem like it's something small, but it's really not. Because really, you're wasting time in a relationship that you could be giving that energy to someone who really knows your worth, someone who really values you, someone who really values your time, someone who really respects you, someone who really cares about how your day is going, about how you feel. You don't care um, enough to call, but you want to text because you're basically just hanging on in the relationship. When it comes down to that lazy communication, or when you just start dating someone and they don't care enough to call, they don't make enough time to call, they don't want to. You're not their person. When someone really wants to be with you, when someone really wants to date you, they're going to call because they don't want anyone else to have you. So they want to hurry up and get you. I want to get him. I want to get her before someone else does. When they're not calling you, or they're not taking you out on dates, or they're not planning dates, And for my ladies, the planning of the dates, you need to let the guys do that, especially if it's someone that you just met, or someone that you just started dating. The guys should be planning the date. You should not be planning the date. They should be planning a date. If you just met someone and you guys have been, talking on the phone and getting to know each other, and after a couple of weeks have been gone by, if he hasn't asked you out on a date, he's not going to take you. He's not going to take you. If he's going to take you on a date, he's going to plan something within that first 2 weeks. If he doesn't plan anything within those first 2 weeks, it's not going to happen. Don't do house dates. Okay. You have no business going to a person's house, man or woman, when you first meet. There's no way. And ladies, if he's not planning a date, but he wants to have a house date, that's another no. That's not something that you do. Because if he really wants to date you, he's going to plan to take you out somewhere. even if it's not somewhere expensive, because maybe he needs to stay well within his budget. Maybe somewhere extravagant is not his budget. As long as it's a nice place, a nice restaurant, as long as it's not a home date. Um, to me, the way that I think is if a guy wants to come to my house before a date, or he wants to do a house date, but he wants to come to my house. Um, or even if he wanted me to come to his house, I don't trust any of that because you don't know me. You don't know me well enough to invite me to your house, and I don't know you well enough to invite you to my house, and I just met you. So that's not something that I do. A house date. I don't do house dates. We should be able to go out to a planned date, and if that's not possible, or if you can't afford a date. I met a guy one time, and we're both in the music industry, and this was a long time ago. And he was like, well, he tried to plan a house date with me, and I told him, I said, I don't go to guys' houses. I don't do that. And he said, well, right now I'm working towards something, that's not like something that I do. He was basically saying he doesn't do dates at the current time because he's working on a goal. Like he was working on buying a club. Okay, I get that. I'm working on a goal too. But guess what? You shouldn't be trying to date. Sometimes when you're working for something or you're working towards something, that's not time to date. So at that point in his life, maybe he shouldn't have been trying to date, but he for surely was not going to date me because I don't do house dates. I don't do that. Put some effort into it. If you want to take someone out, you should be able to put some effort into the dating. If you can't afford to, then you should not be dating. You should date when you can afford to date, when you can afford to take someone somewhere. If you have something going on in your life financially where you're like, hey, I can't afford to date, but I can invite someone to my house, you don't need to be dating. And that goes for a woman too. If you're in so many financial binds, you have no business dating. You need to date when you get yourself together, when you get your finances together, even though he's paying for the date. Because as a female, as a woman, you should not be planning the date, or you should not be paying for the date. Okay, but if you are between housing, or you don't have your basic necessities, you should not be dating. That's something you shouldn't be doing. So I really just wanted to come on here, and I wanted to introduce the Relationship Conversation podcast. I will be uploading shorts to here, and when I start getting more people on my live, and once I start getting people to pay attention to this podcast, I will be inviting people on the panel and guests on my YouTube as well. We will have the live podcast shot in Atlanta, Georgia in spring of this year, and that's between April and May. So thank you and have a blessed night.